Matt Norlander covers college basketball. He's got his CBS Eye on College Basketball podcast, senior writer for CBS Sports. Matt, good to have you back again. Virginia, a no-show. There are a lot of people said Virginia never should have been in there. Why were they in there to begin with?
That is the most unanswerable question heading into this tournament. Dan, it's a pleasure to join you. By the way, thank you so much for having me on. Virginia did not have, in my opinion, the resume to validate inclusion. And I want to be particular about this. We talked about this on the CBS podcast. Normally, I think it's actually a very slippery slope to judge tournament performance to validate or negate opinions going in. It's a one-game sample size. It's not representative of 30, 31 games. I think it's a lazy thing to do. However, I said going into the game on Tuesday, Virginia had no business in the field. I would have put St. John's or Indiana State in the field, and having such a poor performance on a big stage only reinforced that. And this was let me be clear about this. I'm so psyched for this tournament. I cannot wait for Thursday to get going. We'll have probably some good games tonight. So we're well past the lamenting about who did or didn't get in. But this year, the committee, unfortunately, after having a couple good years, they had some pretty brutal misseedings. And for whatever reason, maybe it's because the bubble cut line was higher than normal. I think the process failed them. It's not a crime against humanity that Virginia was in the field, but now it has not won a tournament game. Oh, by the way, since Tony Bennett and the Cavs cut down the nets in 2019 in Minneapolis, they have gone 0 since, famously last year, obviously losing at the buzzer to Furman.
Most vulnerable number one seed is who?
Carolina. Carolina's in the weakest region. Carolina's in the West. It's a good question, Dan, but I think that UNC, because it hasn't rated, like statistically, UNC has not rated as well all season as definitely not UConn, definitely not Houston, and Purdue's under the most pressure of any team. And actually, Purdue might have to have Utah State in the second round, a 26-win Utah State team coached by Danny Sprinkle, like legit team. But Carolina, to me, although its defense is better, I think it is the weakest of the four, and therefore it is the most vulnerable of the one seeds. And for your audience, just keep this in mind as you're doing your bracket stuff. Okay, we are going to have either ones or twos lose in the first weekend. It is going to happen. It happens almost every single year, and I know it's hard to pick against it, but we just had it last year. Here's the stat. Only 2 times in the past 26 tournaments, Dan, have all 4 2 seeds made the Sweet 16. Okay? So pick at least 1-2 to lose early. Last year, Marquette and Arizona both went down, but it almost always happens. I think Iowa State is vulnerable, and I think Marquette's vulnerable on the 2 line, and I think UNC is the shakiest one.
I came up with a solution. I know we're going to expand the tournament. The question is not if, but when. You got 68. This is what I'm suggesting, Matt.
Okay.
You expand to 80. That gives you all 4 regions a first 4. So you have 4 20-team regions. The first 4s could take place at the one of the venues where the Thursday, Saturday, Friday, Sunday games will occur. So less travel, easier for fans to travel to one place, more flexibility regarding the timing and rest of the teams involved. If you go 72 or 76, that still leaves 2 regions uneven in terms of fairness, I guess. So if you're going to expand from 68, I would go to 80, and I think the math works out. What do you think?
Yeah, I absolutely hate it. So a couple things. One, I'm a listener to the show. Love listening to the pod during workouts. I thought what Krzyzewski said last week was terrific. I'm going to give you a little bit of intel and then some reporting. I have been tracking this story for as long as it's been a topic, I guess. And I think that expansion is very much on the table. And I would lean more likely than not. But I will just tell you, I've talked with some of the most important people involved in these decisions. And there is pushback to this idea. And when Krzyzewski came on your show and said, we should not even be talking about this because we don't even know the environment we're going to be in 5 years, he is 100% on the money. Okay. We don't know what the media environment or the television environment will be when this current contract runs out. And the contract, I work for CBS and Turner have the contract. They're not going to just willingly, they have the best deal in sports. This is a great deal on the television side. They're not going to just break this. So if they want to expand it, also keep this in mind. If you expand the men's tournament, you will have to expand the women's tournament as well. There are so many logistical things that go into it. 80, I understand what you're saying. This should be hard to get into. We just had conference.
I'm not in favor of expansion, Matt. I'm giving you it's going to happen, and if it does, this is my solution. I wouldn't have expanded it to 68 to begin.
I agree. We're about to hit what I call the Goldilocks zone at about midnight tonight, where we have 64 teams in the tournament. It is perfect. Okay, we live in that until about 12:15 on Thursday, when the first game, Mississippi State, Michigan State, will tip off on CBS. That's the Goldilocks zone. I love living in that because that is the bracket as it should be, and it's perfect state. There are people in college sports. I talked to a conference commissioner of note a week ago. Does not want to expand the tournament. Is in those conversations. If it ain't broke, don't break it, was that commissioner's words to me. I really hope it doesn't expand. Here's the thing. I don't know if you'll find one thing in all of American sports where the majority of American sports fans are on the same side than this issue. Almost nobody wants to expand the tournament. The only people that do are coaches that want to increase their job security, which they won't, because then, as you've said before, if you don't make the tournament, you should be fired.
Yes.
Okay. And the conference commissioners that are trying to get more money, you can rearrange those kind of deals. There is no reason to expand the NCAA tournament. It will not. There has not been a single person who has been able to give me a viable reason why the tournament and the sport would be bettered by having even a 69th team into it. One example of this that I'll give you why it shouldn't expand. Take your show, for example. You got to cover the sport nationally. Do a great job of doing it, Dan. You almost never bring up college basketball in November, December, and nor should you for a national show. You think the sport will add any more relevance if there are 80 teams getting into this thing? No, you need to make November and December as urgent as possible by encouraging the high majors to play each other so that those games carry significance, and it actually gets to a point where it's like, whoa, is St. John's going to get into the field? Is Seton Hall going to get into the field? Will Indiana State make it? There is an urgency, attention to this sport over the previous week because there's 68. It's not too big. It's not too small. It's just right. I hope they don't expand it. And I do anticipate, in talking to sources, that we will have clarity on a timeline on this year at some point, whether it's the spring, summer, or fall. We will know where the direction that this is going.
I love you fired up. Matt Norlander, CBS Sports senior writer, and his podcast, CBS Eye on College Basketball. All right, you had a piece yesterday on college coaches and their favorite bands or their artists here.
Yes.
Run through some that might surprise us.
Oh, man. So I was fired up on the tournament stuff. This was a joy. I mean, an absolute joy. Some of my favorites that were just surprising to me, Kyle Smith of Washington State giving me Digital Underground that is the one getting the most street cred. Will Wade and Bill Self tossing me Earth, Wind, and Fire. Bucky McMillan, he coaches Samford. They're going to play Kansas. He's 40 years old, hasn't moved out of the city of Birmingham his entire life. Gives me Sam Cooke. Said he was an old soul. I couldn't believe it. Now, I will say, I put this out, and the response has been incredible. Hubert Davis is getting dragged because no one believes that he listened to Lil Durk. And I'm here just to report that there were a couple coaches that they gave me their answers. Hubert Davis was one of them. John Calipari gave me Drake. I pushed back on it. Now, Cal told me he does not listen to music at all. So he's just using Drake because Drake, shows up to Kentucky, sitting in the locker room. He wants to do layup lines, whatever. He was the only one that says he doesn't actually listen to music, but no one thinks that Cal listens to Drake. No one thinks that Hubert Davis listens to Lil Durk. I pushed back on the ones where I said, because I told Hubert, I was like, you're using this as a recruiting tool.
Yes.
No, I'm not letting you do that. He reinforced it. His staff backed it up. He said Lil Durk was one, Meek Mill was two, and then Dusty May of FAU gave me Rod Wave. Dan, do you even know who Rod Wave is? Rod Wave. Are you familiar with Rod Wave?
No.
Yeah. Okay. So Dusty May is either getting the most street credit of his entire life or just outright dragged. I hit him up this morning. I said, listen, I'm going on Dan Patrick. I'm going to need a statement. I'm going to need you to reinforce this. He sent me a screen grab of his pregame playlist. And he said, for the record, I support Hubert. So it's been an incredible thing. I'll just give you a couple more here. Michael Jackson got the most votes. There were 4 Michael Jacksons: Leon Rice at Boise State, Rodney Terry at Texas, John Gross at Akron, and Kevin Keats. And then Izzo gave me Jackson 5. Couple of Pearl Jams in there, including the coach of your reigning national champions, Dan Hurley. I'm a big DMB fan, big one, and Richard Pitino at New Mexico. And Chris Jans at Mississippi State gave me that. It's at CBSSports.com. This was such an incredibly fun thing to do. I will say this. I'm going to give credit to the coach that I think is genuinely the biggest fan of the band he gave me. So 68 coaches, the one that I think is the biggest, Tommy Lloyd at Arizona, can rap you every single Beastie Boys lyric. He has attended so many concerts. He is a legit diehard Beastie Boys fan. So Arizona fans, you got a real one.
No sleep till Brooklyn for you with all of this work that you're doing there.
That is correct. And I will be in Brooklyn on Friday. By the way, Dan, I feel like the best matchup for you might be Nebraska A&M. Buzz Williams, Doobie Brothers. How about Fred Hoiberg giving me Queen? I think that's the best. I think that's the Dan Patrick special first round matchup.
Okay, all right, that's in my wheelhouse, and I like that. You need to find out what Trev Albert's favorite band is. The former athletic director at Nebraska, now the athletic director at Texas A&M.
That is true. And by the way, we get that in the men's and the women's bracket. That will be fascinating. By the way, Nebraska A&M. It's an 8-9er. Casey Tominaga for Nebraska.
Love him.
The most enthusiastic, joyous player in this field. Find the time to be able to watch that game and watch that matchup. That's going to be a TNT tip 6:50 on Friday. Incredible stuff coming there out of Memphis. But yes, I will be in Brooklyn on Friday. Dan, I just got to tell you, man, fellow Connecticut resident, career bucket list achievement to be able to join you on the show. I really, really appreciate it.
We'll have you back. Love the enthusiasm. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you so much, Dan.
Matt Norlander, CBS Sports senior writer, and his podcast is CBS Eye on college basketball.